So today we're moving toward Holy Week. So for Christians, we have something to look forward to. And we're in this process now, which is going to culminate in the fulfillment of Christ's mission when he came to earth. So but basically it requires an inward process of conversion, which means that, as John the Baptist had said, turning away from material things, from sin, and starting our lives by living the way God wants us to live. So, anyway, I hope I'm not rambling too much here, but we're looking at now a unique opportunity because in the world situation now, Russia has taken the initiative to bring peace and a resolution to the conflict in the Middle East. You see what's going on in Syria, how they've defeated these terrorists, and this is, of course, going to create a whole new situation in Iran. Probably we'll see Iran reasserting their national identity as Persian people, Iranian people, because they'll throw off this artificial restraint imposed by Arab conquest many centuries ago, and they'll be open to the teachings of Christ. So there's so much opportunity in the world today now, we see, because Russia is going to take the lead now. America has basically abdicated responsibility. We've sold out to the state of Israel, to the capitalists, to these transnational corporate entities that are only concerned with making money, paying these exorbitant salaries and bonuses to their CEOs. And we have this elite of this financial elite in the world. So these have basically abdicated because of all of the blunders that they made, particularly here in the United States. And we no longer here have the mantle of being a peacekeeping nation anymore. So why should we go around acting as though we have the answers to other people's problems. We don't. People in other parts of the world have their own responsibility to make life better, and it can only be done through Christ and His church to begin with. So that's what we have to learn here in America. Now, so so there are two levels we have to work on. One is at the national level. We have to start here and make the necessary changes to build our nation and our economy, starting with the principles of the family and working up from there to build community. And then the other important thing is the world. We have to stop acting as though we have control over other nations. Stop trying to impose democracy on other nations, essentially, because for most of the world, for most of mankind, the best form of social organization will be up to them to decide, and it's almost certainly going to be in the form of a monarchy or something similar to that, where we have power exerted by a representative of the people, a monarch, we could call him. And that monarch then has a responsibility to recognize the families that constitute that particular nation and to give them what is necessary to let them develop, to let the individual develop in the family, within the family, and then that makes for a much better form of social order, social organization. Now, this is something that's going to happen. That's why we're seeing this essentially diffusion or breakdown within the United States. And but it's all going to turn out for the good, because as this progresses along, we will see that the families will become stronger, and the head of the family will be the father in most cases. There are a few exceptions, but very insignificant in terms of the entire process. So we'll see that men will have to take responsibility for their own families, basically. And we won't have this situation of one-parent families or things like that, or same-sex type of family structures. So, and when this occurs in America, then we will again begin to follow the way of Christ, and it will lead to a much better type of a social order. So that's what we have to look forward to. So I would recommend, especially for our President Donald Trump, to defer to Mr. Putin in Russia, to let him exercise legitimate authority in his own country and in his relationships with his own neighbors, particularly Ukraine, other parts of Eastern Europe, and the Islamic nations of Southern Asia that formerly belonged to the Soviet Union. And this will bring about peace. This will bring about peace in the Middle East. And of course, there's no peace without justice, so we can't have this system of capitalism where only a few people in society take control over all of the resources and have control over all of the business interests, basically, and basically cheat the workers of a just wage. You see, in other words, there has to be full employment. There has to be workers receiving a just wage. Otherwise, there's no basis at all for even going on with economic activity. It's completely illegitimate. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So we have to go back to the idea of the common good. So in the United States, what does that mean? Well, we have to start at the very bottom level here with the families and these other intermediate organizations, and then they will form an interface type of a thing in terms of how they relate with the government. You know, something that's an authority that exists because of Christ. You know, there's no other explanation for this kind of an authority in a social structure, because it's part of our rational nature as human beings to form these types of government structures. It's for the common good. And when it goes against the common good, when it only benefits a few people, that's not going to work. It's going to cause hardship for people and misery and suffering. So we're in the process now where we have basically an assurance that things are going to change, and for the better, because this is what Our Lady had told us over 100 years ago in the apparitions at Fatima, that there would be wars and upheavals, things like that. There would be great suffering, especially for the church, but there would eventually these things will be resolved, and there would be an era of peace, and that's where we are today. So keep moving forward, and things will turn out for the good for everybody. Thank you, and